Thank you and welcome to Trek Wars. Today's episode, I want to talk about what we would do if I was in charge of the fleet composition of the Dominion Cardassian Alliance. So obviously the first thing we need to do is we need to understand what kind of ships we have and what their capabilities are. So the first ship we'll take a look is the main ship of the Dominion force, the Bug ship. So the Dominion fighter is carrying typically 3 polaron beam weapons located in the front of the ship. It could also carry a torpedo launcher as well. Its shields are 325,000, its hull value is 195. This ship is extremely fast and maneuverable and easy to produce, but overall is relatively weak compared to other ships. The next ship we're going to take a look at is the Dominion cruiser. The Dominion cruiser has 6 polaron beam weapons and has 1 torpedo launcher. The only real side effect to this ship is though it does have increased firepower, its fire rate is significantly slower than other ships, but it does have a decent shield and its armament is okay for a ship of its size. This particular ship gives up armor for increased speed, so for a ship of its size, its hull defense of 845,000 isn't particularly that great. It's definitely reliant on its shield to keep it in the fight. So as you can see, the Dominion Bug ship is able to fire a lot of weaker blasts, giving it an attack value of 520, which is extremely powerful for a ship of its size. On the other hand, the Dominion cruiser, the heavy polaron beam weapons seem to fire like cannons, seeing only 1 to 3 shots, giving it an attack value of 1,012,500, which really isn't particularly that great. So this ship obviously is supposed to stand behind the lines and then just fires at capital class ships. Next we're going to look at the Cardassian ships that have been improved with Dominion technology. So the top ship is representing the Type 3 Galor class with Dominion technology. It has a shield matrix which is about the same as a Galaxy class starship. Overall it's pretty powerful. Its forward-facing heavy spiral weaver disruptor cannon is able to deal 843,750 points of damage. Now, next is Hideki. The Hideki doesn't have that great of a firing arc. It's kind of a low-class ship, and it's not particularly that great, and it doesn't seem to really have that many upgrades. The Dominion didn't even bother with it. So at 97,500, it's pretty low. Then the bottom ship is a standard Galor Type 2, which is what the Dominion forces typically had. So if any of you have seen my previous videos, you know that the Galor Type 2 has a very crappy shield of 260,000, and it almost completely relies on hull armor for its defense. This ship's not particularly that great, but the Dominion did give it decent firepower. So this must be a note of the difference between the Type 2s and the Type 3s. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to discuss and tell you why I would set the fleets up the way that I have. And I hope you guys enjoy, and if you have a different fleet composition, please share it with me. So this would be the new raiding fleet. It would no longer be 3 or 4 bug ships, but it would be 3 bug ships supported by 2 Galor Type 2s, and then those Galor 2s would be supported by the Hidekis. And the idea is we rely on the Dominion ships to bring most of the front power, but the Hidekis would protect the Galors, and the Galors would also be able to strike from long range. So not only would the Federation ships be overwhelmed or swarmed by the small fleet, but the Galors could support them from a distance, and if cloaked ships got past, the Hidekis can give some support to the Galors. Border Patrol. So typically there are 3 Dominion bug ships on Border Patrol. I would increase that to 4 and then give an additional 2 Galor Type 3s. They would attack and move in unison, and the reason for this is just to give them the best chance against surprise attacks from Klingon cloaked vessels. Lower risk engagement areas, I would substitute the Type 3s with Type 2s, but support them with 3 Hidekis. The reason for that is these ships, the Type 3s are extremely rare and we will not want to waste them. So now we'll talk about the frontline composition. I would have changed this up. So instead of having the Galor Type 2s and the Hidekis in the front supported by a handful of Dominion bug ships, I would have put the Dominion bug ships in front, and then in the middle I would have put, between each Galor, I would have put at least 1 Dominion cruiser, and then I would have used the Hidekis to support the back line of the Galor and the cruiser. The reason for this is the Galor Type 2's shielding is just too poor and too weak, and they just would have collapsed too early. But if they had the Dominion, which can stand longer, then the Galors they do have a good amount of firepower. So if they're in that middle section, they could be giving their long-range spiral wave disruptor cannon and could be hitting ships and surviving and doing more damage longer. Also would have had the fleets broken down in specific jobs. So for every 3 Dominion bug ships would take on one of the ships that you see before us. I would do a 3-on-1. And they would continue this rotation during the entire battle. And for medium class ships, I would have 4 Dominion bug ships engage it, supported by 2 Galor Type 2s in the rear. And for Galaxy classes or higher, I would have 4 bug ships and supported by 2 Galor Type 3s with 1 Dominion cruiser supporting them. So previously, engagements would have looked something like this. It would have been a Galor with a couple Dominion bug ships taking on a couple Federation starships, just kind of randomly attacking the targets they see before them, looking like this. My alteration plan would always be something like this. You would always have the fleet of ships that have been predestined to take on one individual ship at a time, would then periodically move, blowing up the Miranda and then moving on to the Centaur. My new fleet doctrine, I would avoid situations like this where it could go either or. I would only be attacking when I know I'm going to win, and I wouldn't waste my resources like they did in the show. I wouldn't have allowed the Dominion to just throw their ships away like garbage. And then dealing with Dreadnought class ships like the Warbird, some of the most dangerous ships out there, I would have focused my fleet's fire upon the front of the ship, and I would have gone straight for the bridge and section where the main weapons are. That would have been a primary target always. We wouldn't shoot around the engines or waste our time. So the Cardassian Dominion fleet had a 3-to-1 ratio, but it was even worse than that. That's before the reinforcements are coming. You gotta understand, like, there are thousands of ships in Dominion space, and so it probably would have been more of a 10-to-1 ratio, but the wormhole obviously was blocked and they weren't able to have reinforcements, so you gotta take that into consideration.